Hey everybody, it's Jim. Welcome to episode 12. Can you believe we are already 12 episodes in to Kitbashing? And I am so excited to have you here with us today on Kitbashing. So what are we going to do for episode 12? Well, I am excited because this is probably my favorite build so far. It's going to be a super fun build. We're actually building this guy right here, and I'll just deconstruct the build that I made before the show, but this one I just thought was way too cool, and so I left it as is so that we can build this as we go. So what I built is a rubber band powered car where the wheels really spin and it drives under its own power. It's going to be a super cool build. We've got a few things that we're going to need to get, so you probably want to just grab your whole maker kit if you've got it. If you don't, you can grab the items on this list and get ready. We've got Ashley here. Right after the break, I actually finally got some stuff going so we can see some videos and stuff that people have submitted to us. I'm really excited for that. Because some things are really, really fantastic, and I wanted to share them with you. Again, my name is Jim. I am your host, and you are watching Kitbashing. Hey everybody, again, I am Jim. I am your host for Kitbashing today, and we're going to dive right into this. This is actually going to be, I'm guessing, a two-part build, depending on how far we get. But today we're building something really awesome. It's going to be a self-propelled rubber band powered vehicle, and it actually works. So I don't know if you remember yesterday, but we had some issues that I was telling you about. We didn't start this build yesterday. I really wanted to, but the first thing I wanted to do was to make sure that I got everything working, because doing this show, I want to make sure that you build things that you can actually use. And I actually wound up changing my plans a little bit. If you remember the vehicle that I showed yesterday, if you watched the What is Kitbashing video for episode 11, you'll remember that it was a little bit different from what you're going to see next. Now, again, here is the kit list for the things you're going to need today. You're going to need your pen and tape, and I've seen some really good improv with people who have run out of tape, or they didn't want to use that tape, and so they grabbed something else. They grabbed masking tape or scotch tape. Any tape really will work. You're going to need one dowel. It's not so much for the build, it's for another part later. 4 of these little circles, and I call them circles. They're really toruses, if you want to be really, really technical about the names. You are going to need rubber bands and paper clips. You're going to need all of your nuts and bolts, and I didn't put that on the list, but you do need all of your nuts and bolts. Well, most of them. You need like the nuts and 2 of the nuts and all the bolts. We'll say that. You're going to need 2 tongue depressors and 3 popsicle sticks. And again, improv, if you don't have the popsicle sticks or tongue depressors, that's totally cool. You can find something else to make these work. We also are going to need 1 thumbtack. It's running away. It won't get away, though. We need 1 thumbtack. Be careful with that. You're going to need, I didn't put them on here, you're going to need your 4 bearings, your 4 skate bearings, all 6 magnets, and 2 metal ball bearings. So there's a couple items that for whatever reason didn't make it onto the graphic before the show, but you're going to want to make sure that you have all of those items out so that we're ready to go today. So first of all, I wanted to show you guys a couple cool things. We had last week a really neat kit build. We did Newton's Cradle, and the Newton's Cradle was a big hit. We had several people who built the Newton's Cradle, and a few sent me pictures, and initially started out with me not being able to get a YouTube video loaded, so I didn't wind up showing any, but I finally got that figured out, and so now I want to show you a couple of these videos. The first video is actually from Ashley, who's here. Hi, Ashley, and her family, and so this is the video. You can see the Newton's Cradle is working that they built. Now, it's got a little glitch in it, which is the same issue I had. If you look at that middle ball, the third one actually from the left side, it has the same thing that I had when I started mine, where that instead of passing the force, it wants to pop out of the line. And that's something that just a little bit of a tweak and some experimentation can fix that with these. But still, you're seeing energy transference. Now watch, he drops it from the left side, and it goes over to the right, and it actually passes the energy back and forth a couple times. So that was really, really awesome. Great job on that. The other one that we've got, here was a kit that went really well. They made a couple modifications to it. They were having trouble getting the strings taped to the marbles, so they wound up tying them, which was actually really cool. And if you look at this picture, which is the follow-up, it works. Let's go back to picture one. See, he's holding the ball up on the left, and on the right, you see the energy transfer worked, and there is the ball on the right going up just past the risers over there. So that was really awesome. Seriously, nice work with that project. And then the last picture I had that I wanted to show off today was this one. This is one that I just got today. They have been catching up. Some people have got the kits just in the last few days. There's a couple people who are going to get their kits today. We're making our final deliveries and getting everything shipped in the mail today for the people who ordered last week. So everybody who's ordered should have their kits, if not today, in a couple days for the ones that we have to ship. But this was a really cool build. They took what we designed and they tweaked a few things as well to make it work for them. They used a different kind of tape from the gaff tape, and it works just fine. Like I said, you've got to be creative sometimes, be willing to improvise and think outside the box. So today's build is really going to be exciting. Before we get into it, though, I wanted to show you a couple really cool things that we're doing off to the side here. So besides this program, we're also making some neat stuff that is going to help the community. Right here, what I'm wearing is a face visor. So this is something that a medical professional can wear, and it will add some extra support, some extra shielding if they're in an environment. Now, I've also got this mask, so I'm going to put that on so you can see. I'm kind of all suited up here. I look like I'm ready to go into surgery. So this mask is actually one that was already used. We have a 4-year-old who's got some medical stuff, and so we have some masks. I had this one sitting in my car, and that's why I brought it out, so that I could have something to show you. So a medical professional is going to be wearing one of these masks anyway, but this gives them an extra layer of protection. And so we're going to be doing that. Now, the other thing is that all day long, if you wear these masks nonstop, here, I'll take this part off. If you wear these masks nonstop, one thing you're going to notice is that your ears are ready to fall off by the end of the day. And so another thing that we're making for medical professionals out in the field is this handy guy. And the way that this works is you just clip it onto one end of your mask, you pull this on just like you normally would. Oh, I'm going to cover up my face. And then you clip it on to the other side. And so instead of, there we go, instead of your ears taking the strain, this actually, see, this goes past my ear and gets clipped onto this guy. Same thing over here, it goes past my ear, so it's not my ear taking the strain. These are a big help to people who have to wear masks for 6, 8, 10, 12 hours a day. And so we're making those as well. So these are some really cool things that we're doing for the community. And in fact, for these, right now, I actually have one of my 3D printers, this is live as we speak, is printing off a whole bunch of these. So my goal is that there have been people who have already contacted me and said, oh, hey, we could use those for our clinic and for our hospital. My goal is to be able to message these people tonight and say, okay, hey, guess what? We've got a bunch printed. They're ready to go. Let's get them out to you. And so right after the show, as soon as this is over, I'm going to go pop those off the 3D printer, and then we're going to make some more. So really cool stuff is going on at the Makerspace. I didn't even show you in the back room. My mom is here again. She is the director of our Sewing and Quilting Club normally. Well, our Sewing and Quilting Club can't meet right now because of situations. And so she is making permanent versions of these masks, the kind that you can wash and reuse and sanitize and have over and over again, because these are really fantastic, but they're really only supposed to be worn once. Now, in an emergency, people are wearing them more than once, but if you have a nice reusable mask, you'll be able to wear that, clean it, wear it again, and you'll be able to use it over and over again. So we're doing some really, really cool stuff that I'm really excited about. But today, I wanted to shift gears now, and I wanted to focus on our build. Today, we are going to put those things off to the side, and we're going to create this cool car. Now, you'll notice a couple weird things about this car. And now, this was part of the problem solving I had yesterday. If you saw yesterday's build, you'd notice that this car had some issues in that it would, when you'd wind up the rubber band, it would just spin out and it wouldn't actually get traction and going. So we did two things to increase traction. One is that we added a little bit of the gaff tape to the wheels. The other thing is that we added a little bit of counterweight to help it. And so you're going to see how those work in just a moment. But first, let's get to our build surface so that we can start working on this. All right, very first thing we need to do is we need to create our front axle. And to create our front axle, what we need is we need one of these popsicle sticks and two of these bearings. And now if you happen to have different kinds of bearings in your kit, so like in my kit I had two with these black fittings and two with the silver fittings, that doesn't really make much of a difference. There are some bearings that are a little bit weird. There are two bearings floating out there someplace that have an orange cap, and those are a slightly different size bearing. I don't know. Those were actually in my personal collection. They got thrown in the kit because we were trying to make enough kits one day. They're almost identical, but they're a little bit smaller. But these will work just fine. And so if you see these and you see like, oh, a couple of them are different from the other two, it shouldn't really matter. Now, I like things to be the same, so I'm going to use two for the front that are the same type of bearing, and then we'll use those for the back. So step one is to take this popsicle stick and get them into these bearings like so. Let me put on my desk cam so you can see this. All right, so here it is, and it's really not that hard of a process. What you'll do is you just rotate left and right and kind of push it in, and you'll see that it starts to go in. Now, if for whatever reason popsicle sticks are not all made the same, and if this is just too hard, what you can do is you can take your thumb and you can just peel off a little bit of the wood on the actual popsicle stick. I'm going to show you here. You don't need to take a lot off. If you take too much off and the bearing moves too much, then you could lose a wheel while this thing is racing, and that would be a bad day. So we're going to pop this off. Okay. There we go. Hi to the folks that just joined us. So what we're doing is we're modifying a popsicle stick, something I never thought I'd say on live television, and making it so that it will fit the wheel bearings or the skate bearings that we're using for this step. And so once I've peeled off enough, and I think I've peeled off enough now that it should work. And the other thing you can do is if you don't have long fingernails, but you have a knife or a pair of scissors, and you're someone responsible enough to use those, you can just shave a little bit off like that. I'll show you just very carefully, but again, we don't want to take off too much, or else then this will not work and we will be short one popsicle stick for later. And nobody wants to be short a popsicle stick. Am I right? Anyway, getting back in here, we are going to take this and we are going to push the popsicle stick into the bearing like so. And now, oh, that went in so much easier. You can see that's almost all the way through. I'm actually going to try to push it just a little bit farther if I can. And see what I'm doing right now is I'm pushing with the angle up just to get it in a little further. And what I'm going for, and this is actually just about perfect, what I'm going for is just to have it barely sticking out on the edge. And it doesn't need to be too much. I'm going to try to get it as flat, as perpendicular, as 90 degrees to the popsicle stick as I can. And I really like that one. That turned out really well. So now we're going to do the other one. And it's the same process where I'm just going back and forth, getting it in here. There's free sound effects today. You didn't know you got that when you were showing up, right? All right. There we go. Okay, so after a little bit of pushing, we got those lined up. And so now we have our front axle, and it should roll pretty good. It's oh look, it's a hoverboard for my fingers. My son has a hoverboard, and sadly he's not here today, but I'm sure he would love the idea of finger hoverboards. We can just cruise down the road. But we are not making finger hoverboards. If we were, build would be done and I would go to black. Wait, no, I'm not done. We are building something awesome. We are building a rubber band racer. So now we have our little hoverboard. What are we going to do with this? Well, we need to connect the big sticks to this. All right, can you show what the ball bearing looks like? We're having trouble finding that in the kit. Yes, I can. That is a very valid request. So the ball bearing, hello ball bearing. It's the it looks kind of like the marbles, and it could easily be mistaken for a marble. It is, there we go, almost focused. The steel, perfectly round little ball. Now, so let's say there's a big what if. What if we can't find the ball bearings today? Is that the end of the world? No, it's not, because there are definitely alternatives. I asked you to bring the whole bag of bolts. If you can't find the ball bearing, you can use one of these guys right there. We just want to add a little bit of extra weight on the back end of the car in the very last step. But if you can find it, if you've got a kit, if you're doing this at home and you happen to have one, these are the ball bearings, these little guys right here. That roll of the R was free. All right. So this is the advantage of live. So we've got the request in the comments about showing the ball bearing. If you show up live, now we've got a lot of people who will show up and watch these videos later. I'm getting piles of emails from people who watch these in the evenings or whenever, and that's totally awesome. I will work with you guys and answer your questions and try to help you after hours too. But if you show up live at the show 1 o'clock every day, then we will be able to dialogue live, and I can hopefully answer your questions as they come up. So we've shown you what a ball bearing looks like. We have assembled our awesome little finger hoverboard, which is the first step. Now we need to get the 2 popsicle sticks attached to the hoverboard, like so. And then we're going to start creating the chassis of a vehicle. For those of you who are interested in knowing, chassis, C-H-A-S-S-I-S, is the term for the frame that a vehicle sits on. It actually was a term that they used back in the old days with wagons, and it just stayed alive when companies like Studebaker took vehicles into the 20th century from the 19th century wagon concept. So to connect these, free history lesson! To connect these, it's pretty darn easy. All we're going to do is take a little bit of our tape, and we're going to tear it off, and I'm going to take about 6 inches of tape, give or take. Maybe not quite. Maybe closer to 4 or 5. So again, if you're an adult and it's a little bit longer than your fingers, or it goes from your finger to your thumb, that's pretty close to 6 inches. Again, we probably don't need that much. For the smaller hands in the crowd, you're probably, if you lay it across here, you probably got 3 inches, and twice would be 6 inches. And so, 2 hand lengths, but we probably don't need that much. So I'm going to take this, and if you remember from before, when I've talked about gaff tape, you can actually tear this down the middle. And we're going to do that today. We're going to take it, and I'm going to separate it down the middle, so I'm left with 2 roughly the same piece of tape. I didn't quite get it in the center, but roughly the same. I'm going to set this aside, and then over here, magnets. They're always sticking to stuff. I'm going to line this up. Now, what I want you to look at with this is kind of a technical build. So some of the stuff I'm going to explain in pretty good detail. But what I want to show you is, see how I've got the nose of this tongue depressor about 1 popsicle stick ahead of the actual front axle. So I've got it about 1 popsicle stick ahead. And in addition to that, I don't have it all the way to the bearing. I have maybe almost, and in fact, we could just call it 1 popsicle stick away from the wheel bearing. So we got about a popsicle stick here, and about a popsicle stick here. It doesn't need to be perfect, but that's generally where you want it. And now what we're going to do is we are going to tape this down, and I'm putting a piece of tape on top. And see how I didn't put the middle of the tape, I put one side shorter than the other. And I'm going to take that short side and I'm going to wrap it around to the bottom. And then I'm going to take the long side and we're going to continue to wrap it around until I've got it pretty secure. Now, if you do it the way I did, if you wrap it from this side coming down across this way, what you're going to see is that it wants to kind of bend inward. That is okay. That is okay. We're going to fix that with the other piece of tape in just a minute here. And so, speaking of, we're going to shift over to my desk cam. And we're going to take that other piece. Now, the way that we're going to do this, exact same as the last time. We are going to place one end shorter than the other. Short end is going to go up here, like so, with a long end down here. We secure the short end, and then I'm going to pull on the long end. But while I'm pulling on the long end, I'm also going to make sure, we'll switch to my overhead camera here, that I'm straightening this out pretty straight. It doesn't need to be perfect. I mean, if these are inwards a little bit, it will not hurt the final craft. But it definitely helps to make this as square as possible. And so I got that nice and square. We made our nice crossover tape. Now here's the other thing I want to point out is that while this is the right way in my book, you might have a way to secure this that's better than me. And if you do, you can tell me about it, and you can do that through email at kitbashing@madenewOmaha.com. I love getting those emails. I love hearing what people are doing, how they're modifying their builds, how they're doing stuff differently, because there really are more than one way that we can do this. So again, kitbashing at madenewOmaha.com is how you get hold of us, and let me know what you're doing differently. And if you're building stuff from this kit, keep in mind that you don't have to build just the things that we're building in the video. This kit has an infinite number of items that you can create. And if you create something and you say, hey, I think this is a really cool thing that I just invented, send it to me. If we like it, which we probably will, we'll say so, and if we really like it, then we'll make it into a build that we do on the show. So those are the ways that you can help us with the program and help us get ideas. We're going to do the same thing on this side. So again, I've got it just about a popsicle stick away and a popsicle stick out, and I'm going to tape it down. And this one I've really got slanted. I'm going to try to straighten that a little bit. There we go. We're going to wrap one. Sweet. And then that little gap that we created is actually going to really help us later on down the road here when we put the wheels on. We don't need to put the wheels on quite yet because that will make this thing big and bulky, and we're not quite ready for that. So if you've got those wheels and you're itching to put them on, patience, grasshopper, patience. All right, so now I taped those up, and I've got the two X's. So I've got my hoverboard now has like two little things dangling off the end of it. That's the start of our chassis. The next part's a little bit trickier. Let me grab the demo car. Here it is. I put it down. The magnets are getting stuck to everything. So on this demo car, the next thing that we're going to work on is this rear axle. And I want you to take a look at this. And I actually, if you see underneath here, we've got this little wrap of paper holding it. The way that we're going to do that is with our index cards. Now I'm going to show you how to do this on our desk cam here. Whoa, not quite that low. Here's the problem when you do things live, is that sometimes that camera doesn't move well, especially if you are the cameraman as well as the host. So we have our index card, and if you look at the index cards, you'll see that they have stripes, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to make a cut in our index card if you've got scissors. Otherwise, we're just going to fold it and tear it, and we're going to do that about 2 lines up from the bottom. So if you have scissors, this is really, really, really easy. It's just a matter of, oh, look at me. I'm going to find the second line, and I am going to cut, 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 cut. Yay, done, easy. What if you don't have scissors on you? What if you don't have that? Well, that is actually not that hard to do. So here we go. We've got our index card. We're going to look again. We've got 1, 2 lines up. What I'm going to do, instead of cutting, once I move my camera, I'm going to find that second line, which you can't see very clearly because of the video quality, but I'm going to fold this over on that line. There we go. And I'm going to use my thumbnail to really push that in, and then I'm going to turn it backwards. So I folded it this way, and now I'm going to turn it the other way and fold it this way. And I'm going to use my fingernails again to pinch it. So we folded it one way, we fold it the other way. I might go back the first way again, and then very gently, we're just going to tear along that fold. So that what that fold did, we actually weakened the fibers of the paper. So paper has fiber in it, just like clothes do, or just like anything, and it's easier to tear if you weaken it first. And so that's why we folded it back and forth. And after doing that, I made a line, and it's not perfect, but it's pretty good. I mean, that's good enough for what we're doing here. So now that we have these 2 pieces of paper, and whether you cut it or whether you did it by hand, you should have 2 sets of index card strips that are both about the same. They're both about 2 lines. So make these 2 strips, and if you're like way behind and I'm going way too fast, there is a pause button here. You should be able to hit it, I hope. But you can pause. It's okay. And we're going to take these 2 pieces of paper, and now we're actually going to make the mount for our rear axle. So how do we make a mount for our rear axle? Well, first of all, we need to find our 2 bearings. We got them. 1 bearing, 2 bearings. And we need to have these, and we need to have more tape. And the tape, I'm going to pull off this time close to 6 inches again. It's going to be about the same length. And bonus, if you would like, you can tear it in half, but you don't have to. So, step 1. We're going to line this up, and here's a really good rule of thumb. You want to make this so it's about the same on both sides. And so what I do is, and you can't really see this very clearly from the camera perspective, maybe if I go to my desk camera, you can see, oh, there we go. See that shadow? You can see that shadow through the card. And I'm going to lay a bearing this way over the shadow. So at the very edge, I'm laying a bearing down, and then I'm going to, as close as I can to that bearing, put my tape down. And actually, you can set this down if you'd like to make it easier, but I'm going to take some tape, and the same way that I did it before, where most of the tape is on one side and just a little bit's on the other. And I'm going to put it as close as I can to that bearing. And we're going to tape this down, slide the bearing out of the way, and then wrap this under. All right, we're going to go around it 1 time. So we've wrapped it around the back, and now we have all this extra tape. What do we do with all this extra tape? Super easy answer. First thing, we take 1 popsicle stick. We lay that popsicle stick down so that the very end of the popsicle stick is almost to the edge of our tape. And if you've got a different width tape, this is all really, like, as long as you do it the same on the left as you did it on the right, it doesn't really matter. We're going to wrap that around so that those 2 things are here. So now that we've got this assembly on this side that is basically a popsicle stick and a piece of tape taped to this tongue depressor. Now before I wrap this around the bottom, I'm going to take my bearing, so my wheel bearing, and I'm going to just hold that with 1 finger right in the middle of this. Oops, switch perspectives so you can see closely. I'm going to hold it right in the middle of the popsicle stick, in the middle of the area that is untaped. So I'm holding it basically middle here, middle there. In both ways, it is centered. And, well, hey, there's me. The next step is to take our piece of paper, and we're going to wrap this around. And as I wrap it around, I'm going to push this in as much as I can. I'm going to push my bearing in as much as I can into that paper. Okay, and then we're going to pinch it down. So now what we're doing is we're creating a nice tight space for the paper. And if we did that previous step and we lined this up so that the tape was almost touching that bearing or just touching that bearing, that'll make it nice and tight. Now, it doesn't have to be perfect, and in fact, it probably won't be. But so I'm going to pull my tape over, and then I'm going to lift this up. We're going to wrap the tape around, and we're going to do this again just to make sure we got all of our tape down really tight. And so now the bearing, you can see that is held on the end of the tongue depressor. Rotate that so you can see, and we've got it taped up really nice. Now, this next step is how we make sure that bearing doesn't go anywhere. In a real automobile, you would actually have a bearing fitting where this bearing would slide in, and there would be a stop point where it would hold that bearing from going any further. We're going to make that. So we placed our bearing. If you remember, we kind of centered it. So there's a little bit of paper on this side and a little bit of paper on this side. All right? That's easy for us to take, and we're going to fold the paper with our fingers. We're just going to pinch it around the bearing in a few spots. And once you've done that, now this bearing is held in place, and it really doesn't want to move very much at all. Cool. All right. That was fairly easy. Now, we might have to take this bearing out when we get to the next step. We might not have to. It just really depends on the difficulty that we run into, because all of these parts are using items made around your house, and you know, household items are not always built to super exact standards. I just took another piece of this material of the tape. Wow, I can't remember the name of the material today. I am struggling, folks. We're going to lay the paper on top again, just like we did last time, and we're going to lay the bearing on top, just like we did last time, and we're going to line it up so that the bearing comes to the edge. Now, if you haven't gathered this yet, the reason that we're doing this is because this gives us a really good measurement of how wide the bearing is underneath, so that when we make our loop on the bottom, it's the right size. So we're going to do that, and this time I'm going to do it a different method. Last time I held it down. This time I'm going to pinch my bearing, and I'm going to, while I'm pinching the bearing, I moved my cameras the other day, and as a result, I find myself occasionally doing things outside of the camera view, and then I look up at my monitor and I see, oh, hey, I should probably move my arms out farther. I should fix my camera position. So now I've wrapped it around just like I did. We wrapped it around once. We should still have some tape left. I'm going to get rid of this guy for right now. Lay the popsicle stick on so it's almost at the end. Not quite, but there. And then we're going to tape it down on the top. And now I should have a little bit left over. Flip it over. We're going to go to the other camera so you can watch again. Flip it over. I've got my bearing. I haven't lost my bearings. Not yet. Soon. I've centered it up. I'm wrapping the paper around. All right, I got the paper wrapped around and kind of held in place. And there we go. Taped that. You kind of hid it from view for a second, but I taped it, and I'm going to flip it, and I'm going to tape it. Cool. So now we have two of these. We just have to pinch this guy in place the same way that we did before, where we crimp the ends, where we just use our fingers to crimp the paper. And the nice thing about using an index card for this is that it's heavy enough that the paper will crimp and hold it in place. Cool. All right, so your rubber band racer is really taking form, and it's getting very, very close. We're going to do one more step today, and then we're going to wrap up for the day. This step is one of my favorites because we're going to use this pen in an unconventional manner. We're going to take the pen, and I want you to take, if you look at the very end of the pen, you'll see that there's a point where the tip material and the rest of the pen meet each other. Now, you might have a pen like this, you might have a blue pen. They're the same brand, so it should work the same. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to pinch the actual pointer end of the pen right here, and I'm going to hold it really tight, and then with my other hand, I'm going to twist the pen so this part isn't moving and this is, and I'm going to twist it, and while I twist, I pull it off. And so it's not screwed on. The twisting motion is just to break the surface tension so that I can get this part separate. What do we do with this? We're going to put this back in our maker kit, and we're going to keep that safe because this pen will be reusable again someday. And you could actually, I mean, if you really wanted to, you could write with this. You just got to be careful because if you pull this little tube off, bad news. Nobody likes ink everywhere. So now we've got this, but the other problem is this pen cap on the end makes it super hard to get the bearing into where it needs to be. So remember that dowel we talked about? We're going to put the dowel through your pen. This gives me inspiration. Maybe we'll do a slide whistle episode one day. I don't know. And then you just push, and it should, if it works right, and if you're lucky, it should push it out. Now, if you're not lucky, you might have to push it. There we go. I had to push it on the table to get it out, and it finally did come out. Now, this might be hard to get off, but we don't need to worry about that today. We can do that another time. Now, you should be left with a perfectly clear, let's see if I can line it up. There it is, and line my eye up. Hi, everybody. You should have a perfectly empty tube. Now, we need to take this tube and we need to get it onto our axle. And we're going to do that by coming down to one side first. See, I'm not going to try to pass this whole thing all the way through. I'm just going to take one side and we're going to push it on. And I'm holding the bearing with two fingers here. While I push with my other hand, there we go. And once you get it on place, you can hold the bearing and kind of slide it. And now we're going to do the same thing on this side. I'm going to separate my chassis just a little bit. And then I'm going to hold on to my bearing and slide it in like so. So now looking from the overhead camera, I'm going to get this so it's about centered on there. And then my chassis looks good and this looks centered. Okay, perfect. So if you haven't noticed, this part spins freely, which is exactly what we want. We want to be able to have our rubber band attach from the front to this guy right here so we can wind the car up, and then when it's done, it will take off. So, if you have followed along today with part 1, you will have a chassis that doesn't have wheels on it. First, we built what looked like a finger hoverboard. Then we added on our tongue depressors. Finally, we put the rear axle, and an axle is the wheel holding bar mechanism on any vehicle. So if you've got a camper that has wheels, it has an axle that holds the wheels on. And so we've added that, and now we've got this really cool spinny thing. I don't know what we could do with this, but I'm sure there's some alternate use for it. And we should be ready for tomorrow's episode. On tomorrow's episode, we're going to put the wheels on. We're going to get the piece set up in the center with the thumbtack to hold the rubber band. Then we're going to wind it up and let it go. We got a lot of fun stuff coming up. If you want to show me your build progress, or if you've got questions, or if you're like, I got it halfway, but I didn't quite get this part done, send me a picture, send me a link at kitbashing@madenewOmaha.com. I love seeing people's kits. I love the creativity out there. If you build something weird and new and totally awesome, send that to me as well. I love that. The other thing I'd encourage you to do is to go to our website, madenewOmaha.com/kitbashing. We have the previous episodes on there. I still haven't added yesterday's on, but I'm going to do that right after this episode is done. So you can review all the old episodes. You can do all the old builds with us. You can see what this thing is all about and more. So that's going to be madenewOmaha.com/kitbashing. Last but not least, if you want to stay in touch with us, stay on our Facebook.com/madenewOmaha page. That page will keep you up to date with the latest things that are going on, as well as our endeavors to help our community by creating things like the mask holders or these awesome super duper face shields, like the one I have right here. So again, I am Jim. I am your host. I am not normally in hazmat gear. I am glad that you came today, and I hope that tomorrow we will be able to get together and make something new here on Kitbashing. Have a great day, guys.